The crowd fell silent as James Reynolds moved methodically across the polished floor of Greater Boston Hospital, his shoulders hunched, eyes downcast. The former decorated police captain now pushed a broom through the corridors where he once commanded respect, his weathered hands gripping the handle with quiet dignity. From behind the reception desk, Administrator Patricia Morgan watched with thinly veiled satisfaction, making sure everyone knew this was his punishment. Reassigned to janitorial duty after speaking out against her cost-cutting measures that endangered patients. "Sweep it again, Reynolds," she called out loudly enough for visitors to hear. "I can still see dust near the east wing." As humiliation burned across his face, the automatic doors slid open. Flashbulbs erupted and reporters swarmed the entrance. Between them walked Elise Montgomery, Ford's listed tech billionaire and James' fiancée, the woman Patricia had smugly assured her board would never exist. Before we continue, if you enjoy stories about justice and redemption, make sure to click that subscribe button. This is the best way for you to support our work. Thank you very much, and let's continue. Greater Boston Hospital gleamed with sterile efficiency under the harsh fluorescent lights. The facility's prestigious reputation was built on cutting-edge treatments and high-profile patients. But beneath the polished surface, trouble had been brewing for months. Cost-cutting measures implemented by the new administration had stretched staff thin and compromised patient care standards. Captain James Reynolds, at 42, carried himself with the same discipline that had defined his 15 years on the police force. His graying temples and the slight limp from an injury sustained during a hostage rescue were the only visible signs of his distinguished career. 6 months ago, he had been the respected head of Boston PD's Community Safety Division, overseeing programs that bridged gaps between law enforcement and vulnerable neighborhoods. Now, he wore the light blue uniform of the hospital's maintenance staff, his police badge and honors locked away in a drawer at home. "Reynolds, I need this entire corridor spotless before the board members arrive," Patricia Morgan called out, her voice sharp and performative. At 53, the hospital administrator had cultivated an image of ruthless efficiency. Her designer suits and perfectly coiffed blonde hair projected authority, but her management style had earned her the nickname Prophet Patricia among the increasingly demoralized staff. James tightened his grip on the broom and continued his work without responding. 3 months into this humiliation, he had learned that engaging with Patricia only provided her with more ammunition. His reassignment to the janitorial position wasn't officially labeled as a demotion that would have violated hospital policy. Instead, it was framed as a temporary reallocation of human resources during budget optimization. The truth was far simpler. James had spoken out against Patricia's decision to reduce overnight nursing staff in the pediatric ward. As the uncle of a child with chronic respiratory issues, he had witnessed firsthand how the reduced supervision had led to delayed responses to emergencies. When his formal complaints through proper channels were ignored, he had raised concerns directly at a staff meeting attended by several board members. Patricia hadn't forgiven the public challenge to her authority. Within days, James found himself reassigned, his security expertise suddenly more valuable in maintaining the hospital's physical environment. "You missed a spot," Patricia remarked loudly as she walked past, purposely scuffing her heels against the floor he had just cleaned. Several visitors glanced up, their expressions ranging from discomfort to pity as they witnessed the interaction. "I'll take care of it right away, Ms. Morgan," James replied evenly, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing him break. His father, a career military man, had taught him that dignity wasn't determined by circumstances, but by how you carried yourself through them. Nurse Sarah Chun approached, carrying a stack of medical charts. She slowed her pace as she passed James, lowering her voice. "Hang in there, Captain. This place was better when people like you were actually listened to." James offered a small, grateful nod. Not everyone at the hospital supported Patricia's methods or James' treatment, but few were willing to risk their own positions by speaking out. The healthcare industry in Boston was competitive, and Patricia had influential connections. "Ms. Chun," Patricia called out sharply from down the hall, "don't you have patients who need attention rather than time for social visits?" Sarah straightened, clutching the charts tighter. "Yes, Ms. Morgan. I was just heading to the pediatric ward." She hurried away, avoiding eye contact with both James and Patricia. James resumed his sweeping, focusing on the methodical back-and-forth motion rather than the burning humiliation. When he had accepted the security position at the hospital after his forced medical retirement from the police force, he had envisioned making a difference in a new environment. Instead, he had found himself in the crosshairs of a broken system that prioritized spreadsheets over patient welfare. What Patricia didn't know, what nobody at the hospital knew, was that James' life outside these walls was vastly different from the subservient janitor they saw daily. 6 months ago, at a charity gala for first responders injured in the line of duty, he had met Elise Montgomery. At 38, Elise had revolutionized cybersecurity protocols with her company, Montgomery Shield. Starting with innovative algorithms she developed while healing from a traumatic experience with online harassment, she had built a tech empire valued at over $9 billion. Despite her wealth and influence, Elise maintained a relatively low public profile, focusing on her work and philanthropy rather than the social circuit that typically accompanied such success. They had connected over shared values rather than circumstances, finding in each other a kindred spirit committed to protecting the vulnerable. Their relationship had developed quietly, away from public scrutiny. James had been drawn to her brilliant mind and genuine compassion. Elise had fallen for his unwavering integrity and gentle strength. When James had confided in Elise about the situation at the hospital, she had offered to intervene immediately, to use her considerable influence to correct the injustice. But James had declined, determined to fight the battle through proper channels first. It was a matter of principle for him, the same principle that had gotten him into the situation to begin with. Reynolds, Patricia's voice cut through his thoughts. The board members will be arriving in 30 minutes for their quarterly meeting. I want the main entrance spotless, and I mean spotless. Your performance today will be noted in your file. James looked up, meeting her gaze directly for the first time that day. Something in his expression, a quiet confidence that seemed incongruous with his current position, made Patricia falter momentarily. Is there a problem? She asked, her voice taking on a defensive edge. No problem at all, Miss Morgan, James replied calmly. The entrance will be clean. Patricia narrowed her eyes, unsettled by his composure. Most employees crumbled under her pressure tactics, but Reynolds maintained an almost unnerving dignity. It made her victorious moments less satisfying. She checked her watch, an ostentatious piece that had been a gift to herself after securing the hospital's largest budget cut in a decade. See that it is, she said finally, turning on her heel to leave. And Reynolds, make sure you're invisible when the board arrives. We wouldn't want to remind them of unfortunate staffing decisions. James watched her walk away, her designer heels clicking against the floor he had spent hours cleaning. He pushed the broom with renewed purpose, not because of Patricia's threats, but because doing the job well, any job, was ingrained in his character. As he worked, he thought about the conversation he'd had with Elise the previous evening. After 3 months of attempting to address the hospital's issues through official channels, documentation of safety concerns, and even an anonymous tip to the Healthcare Regulatory Board, James had finally agreed it was time for more decisive action. Elise had smiled, a gleam of determination in her eyes, and said simply, "Leave it to me." Now, as he finished cleaning the hospital's main entrance, James wondered what exactly she had meant. Elise's approach to problem-solving was as brilliant as it was unexpected. It was one of the many reasons he had fallen in love with her. The hospital's sliding doors opened, admitting an elderly patient being helped by a family member. James moved his cleaning cart aside to make way for them, offering a respectful nod. He had just resumed his work when Patricia reappeared, accompanied by 2 board members who had arrived early. As you can see, our efficiency measures have allowed us to redirect resources to critical patient care areas, Patricia was explaining, gesturing around the immaculate lobby. The quarterly numbers are very encouraging. And what about the concerns raised about night staffing? Asked Dr. Eleanor Wright, the most senior board member present. At 67, she had been with the hospital for over 3 decades and was known for her no-nonsense approach to hospital management. Patricia's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Unfounded worries from staff resistant to change. I'm afraid. The data shows no impact on patient outcomes. James kept his head down, focusing on his sweeping, but his ears caught every word. Patricia was lying outright. He had compiled documentation showing 3 separate incidents where reduced staffing had led to delayed responses to pediatric emergencies. And that security officer who raised concerns at the last staff meeting? Dr. Wright persisted. Reynolds, wasn't it? Former police captain? Where is he now? Patricia's laugh was practiced and dismissive. He expressed interest in contributing to the hospital in different ways. Very dedicated employee, just needed the right position. At that moment, Patricia spotted James with his broom. Her eyes widened in alarm, and she quickly maneuvered to position herself between the board members and James, attempting to block their view of him. Let's continue this discussion in the boardroom, she suggested brightly.